Most people think being alone is a weakness. They fear it, they run from it. But let me tell you something, if you are a woman with no friends, you are not weak. You are powerful beyond measure. You are standing in a space very few can handle, and if you stay the course, the life you build will be stronger than anything built on shallow connections. The empty room. There comes a moment when the room falls silent. No messages, no invitations, no endless chatter, just you. And that moment feels heavier than anything you've ever carried. The walls seem to close in a little tighter. The air feels thicker. You check your phone out of habit, nothing. You check again 5 minutes later, still nothing. And deep down, it hits you. You've been forgotten. Everyone else seems to be moving on, rushing toward their dreams, living their lives, while you sit there, stuck. It's easy to start believing that something is wrong with you, like you're somehow broken or behind. Your mind, desperate for answers, begins weaving painful stories, ugly ones that tell you you're not enough, that you failed, that you're invisible. In the empty room, those stories get louder. The silence becomes a mirror, showing you every insecurity, every fear you've been trying to outrun. And in that moment, it's tempting to give in, to believe the worst about yourself, to collapse under the weight of your own doubts. But listen carefully, that silence you fear so much isn't your enemy. It's a gift most people never receive, or worse, they receive it but are too afraid to open it. That empty room is a blank canvas, untouched and full of potential. When nobody is there to tell you who you are supposed to be, when there are no opinions flooding your mind, when the noise dies down, that's when something rare happens. For the first time in a long time, maybe for the first time ever, you hold the brush. You become the artist of your own future. Every color you choose, every stroke you make, every risk you take, it's all yours. No expectations to meet, no performance to put on, no audience to impress. Just you, your dreams, your choices. This is where real power is born, not in the applause of a crowd, but in the courage it takes to create when nobody is clapping. Most people never sit still long enough to experience this. They panic at the first sign of silence. They reach for their phones, flood their minds with distractions, chase any form of validation to fill the uncomfortable space. But running from the empty room is running from yourself. And you can't build anything real if you're always running. You have to stand there in the uncomfortable stillness and face everything you've been avoiding. You have to meet yourself raw, unfiltered, vulnerable. That's where the transformation happens. That's where the strongest people are made. Not in the spotlight, but in the shadows. Not when they're surrounded by fans, but when they're surrounded by doubt and still choose to believe anyway. Because if you can thrive in the empty room, if you can build strength when no one is watching, if you can love yourself when no one is applauding, if you can keep moving when no one is cheering you on, then you'll be unstoppable when the world finally turns its eyes back toward you. The truth is, most people are only as good as the attention they receive. But when you've been forged in silence, when your worth has been built brick by brick in solitude, you don't just survive. When the crowd disappears, you thrive. You no longer chase validation. You embody it. You no longer beg for a seat at the table. You build your own. You no longer fear being alone. You welcome it because you know the empty room isn't empty at all, it's full of possibility. Yes, the empty room feels lonely at first. It feels like punishment. It feels unfair, but stay a little longer. Sit in the discomfort. Feel the weight of it without trying to escape. Because beyond that first wave of fear, something extraordinary waits for you. A version of yourself that is stronger, wiser, more powerful than you ever imagined. A self that no longer depends on noise to feel alive. A self that no longer crumbles when attention fades. A self that builds, creates, rises regardless of who's watching. So the next time you find yourself in that silence, when the invitations stop, when the messages dry up, when the noise falls away, don't rush to fill it. Don't run. Don't numb. Stay. Stay long enough to hear your own heartbeat again. Stay long enough to remember who you were before the world told you who to be. Stay long enough to pick up the brush and start painting your masterpiece stroke by stroke, mistake by mistake, truth by truth. Because the empty room isn't where you lose yourself. It's where you finally find yourself. And when you understand that, you realize you were never abandoned. You were being prepared. The noise they run to. Most people are terrified of silence because they are terrified of themselves. They'll do anything to avoid it. They drown their days in noise, gossip about people who don't even matter, endless parties that blur together, distractions that eat away at their time like termites. They chase loudness, thinking that if the world around them stays busy enough, maybe, just maybe, they won't have to hear the questions they're too scared to answer. They run to chaos like it's a safe house, but deep down, they know it's just a shield. Because silence strips away the armor. It exposes the truth. And for most, the truth is too heavy to carry alone. When you have no friends, no plans, no fake smiles to hide behind, you are forced to confront what's real. You are faced with the one person you can't lie to yourself. Not the polished version you present to the world. Not the watered-down version you mold to fit in. But the raw, untouched, stubbornly honest version of you. The version that knows what you truly want. The version that remembers the dreams you abandoned to be accepted. The version that aches for meaning while your outer world chases approval. And it's not comfortable, it's messy, it's ugly, it's terrifying. But it's also where everything real begins. The noise they run to is a drug, a way to stay numb, a way to delay the moment of reckoning. Because sitting with yourself in silence demands answers. Who are you without the likes, the texts, the invitations? What do you stand for when no one is there to clap for you? What do you truly believe when you're not trying to belong? Most can't handle the weight of those questions. They'd rather stay busy than stay real. They'd rather fill the air with meaningless chatter than fill their soul with uncomfortable truths. But if you're brave enough, you'll see the opportunity hidden in the silence. You'll see that every quiet moment is a chance to rebuild, to reshape, to rise. When the noise fades, when the masks drop, when the fake crowds disappear, you have a choice. You can either panic and rush back into the circus, or you can stay. Stay with the discomfort. Stay with the emptiness. Stay with the questions. Because staying means facing everything you've been avoiding, and facing it means finally breaking free. You'll realize that most friendships you thought you needed were never about connection, they were about distraction. Most parties you thought you enjoyed were never about joy, they were about escaping yourself. Most conversations you clung to were never about growth, they were about staying busy enough to avoid hearing your own doubts. Once you see through the noise, you can never unsee it. You'll start craving silence the way others crave attention. You'll start valuing depth over distraction, purpose over popularity, solitude over superficial validation. And here's the paradox. The moment you stop needing the noise, you become the one people are drawn to. Because realness is rare. Authenticity is magnetic. While they run in circles trying to find themselves through others, you'll already be standing there rooted, grounded, unshakable. You'll stop bending to stay invited. You'll stop shrinking to stay accepted. You'll stop editing yourself just to avoid the loneliness. You'll become someone who doesn't just survive the silence, you'll master it. The world doesn't need more noise. It needs more people who can walk into a crowded room and stay centered. It needs more people who can sit alone with their thoughts and not crumble. It needs more people who are comfortable being seen as different, misunderstood, even forgotten because they know who they are beyond the masks. Silence isn't your enemy. Loneliness isn't your punishment. They're your teachers. They strip away the unnecessary. They tear down the illusions. They bring you face to face with the only person who can change your life, you. And when you finally sit with yourself, no distractions, no filters, no noise, you realize the thing you were running from all along was never the silence. It was your own greatness waiting to be unleashed. The mirror of isolation. Isolation is not punishment. It is a mirror, and it's one of the most honest mirrors you will ever face. It strips away the noise, the distractions, the applause, the comforting nods of approval from others. It leaves you standing bare with no stage, no spotlight, no audience to feed off. It is just you, your thoughts, your fears, your dreams, your doubts. Isolation shows you exactly who you are when nobody is watching, when there's no one to impress, no one to applaud your efforts, no one to validate your existence. It holds up a reflection of the self you can no longer hide from. And in that reflection, you will see everything, the strength you forgot you had, the fears you never truly conquered, the insecurities you buried deep, the dreams you once believed were impossible. Isolation doesn't sugarcoat anything. It doesn't flatter you. It doesn't make excuses for you. It just shows you what's real. And that's exactly where transformation begins. Growth never happens in the crowd. Growth never happens when you're constantly surrounded by approval and applause. In fact, the crowd often delays growth because it gives you just enough comfort to stay the same. True transformation happens in the wilderness, in the silence, in the stillness, in the places where nobody else dares to go. It happens when you are forced to sit with your own demons, your own weaknesses, your own unfulfilled potential. When there is no one left to blame. When there are no distractions left to hide behind. When the excuses you used to lean on sound hollow, even to your own ears. That's when you are faced with the raw truth of who you are and who you could become. Most people fear isolation because they fear what they'll see in that mirror. They fear discovering that they're not as strong as they pretended to be, that they've been living someone else's version of success, that their confidence was borrowed from the opinions of others. But if you can stay with the discomfort, if you can resist the urge to numb it, run from it, drown it out, you'll find something priceless. You'll find the seeds of real strength, real clarity, real purpose. You'll find the pieces of yourself that were buried under layers of expectation and noise. You'll realize that everything you ever needed was never out there in the crowd. It was always locked inside you, waiting for the silence to set it free. Isolation is not a curse. It's a calling. It's the universe pulling you aside, away from the noise, away from the distractions, to have a brutally honest conversation with your soul. It's asking you, who are you when no one's watching? What do you believe in when there's no one to cheer for you? What do you stand for when standing alone is the only option? These aren't comfortable questions. They're not easy answers, but they are the foundation of real power. Because when you emerge from isolation, when you've wrestled with your fears, when you've faced your doubts, when you've stared into that mirror and didn't flinch, you come back stronger. Not fake strong, not look at me strong, silent strong, unshakable strong. The kind of strength that doesn't need to be seen to be real. The kind that can stand alone without apology. The kind that doesn't collapse the moment applause fades. So next time life pulls you into isolation, into the quiet, into the stillness, into the parts of yourself that you've been avoiding, don't see it as punishment. See it as preparation. See it as a sacred space where your real self can finally surface. See it as the furnace where your future is forged. Because the strongest, most unstoppable versions of ourselves aren't born when we're surrounded by crowds. They're born when we stand alone in the wilderness and choose to keep walking anyway, building unshakable strength. Without friends to rely on, without a cheering section to lift you up when you stumble, something incredible happens. You are forced to become your own savior. At first it feels cruel. It feels like abandonment. It feels like the universe has forgotten you. But hidden underneath that loneliness is a gift most people will never receive. You become the one who picks yourself up when you fall. You become the shoulder you cry on, the hand that pulls you back to your feet, the voice that whispers, keep going, even when nobody else can hear it. You become your own fire in the freezing darkness, your own anchor in the storm, your own light when everything around you turns dim. In the absence of a crowd, you learn to be self-contained. You stop depending on borrowed strength. You stop outsourcing your worth to people who could never truly understand your battles. You learn what it means to stand firm on your own 2 feet, to trust your own instincts, to respect your own journey without needing an audience. The silence teaches you things that applause never could. It forces you to meet yourself at your weakest and love yourself anyway. It forces you to keep moving forward, even when no one is watching, even when no one is clapping, even when no one is offering a hand. And in that brutal, beautiful process, you build a kind of self-respect that no one can take away from you. You stop bending for acceptance. You stop shrinking for approval. You stop waiting for permission to be proud of who you are. Self-driven, self-sustained, self-respecting. That's what you become when the world falls silent. You realize that validation, that desperate hunger for someone to tell you that you're good enough was always a trap. It was always an illusion. Your worth was never supposed to be a group project. It was never meant to be something fragile enough to be handed to you, only to be taken away the moment someone changed their mind. It was never supposed to be voted on by a crowd that doesn't even know who you truly are. Your worth was set the day you were born. It was written into you, unbreakable, undeniable, untouched by the opinions of others. Most people spend their lives trying to patch up their insecurities with outside approval. They chase likes, praise, and shallow friendships, hoping the noise will fill the void inside, but it never does. Because real strength, real confidence, real peace, it can't be given to you. It has to be built from within. It has to be earned in the lonely hours, in the private battles, in the moments when quitting would be easy, but you choose not to. You choose to fight for yourself, not because anyone's watching, not because anyone's rewarding you, but because you finally decided that you are worth fighting for. And when that shift happens, when you no longer need anyone's permission to feel proud, when you no longer seek applause to feel alive, when you no longer crave the nods and smiles and handshakes, you become unstoppable. You walk into rooms differently. You make decisions differently. You move through life with a quiet power that can't be faked and can't be shaken. People will feel it. They won't always understand it, but they'll feel it. Because strength built in solitude leaves a mark that the world can't ignore. So if you find yourself alone, building yourself back up from nothing, don't resent it. Embrace it, lean into it. Because while others are busy chasing approval, you're busy building something they can never take away: unshakable strength. And one day, when the noise returns, when the crowd gathers again, when the invitations start rolling back in, you won't need any of it to stand tall. You'll already know who you are. And that kind of strength, that's forever. Choosing depth over company. Many women surround themselves with dozens of friends, weaving social circles so wide and busy that from the outside, it looks like they are deeply loved, fully supported, and endlessly connected. But appearances lie. Because when real storms come, when life cracks open with loss, betrayal, heartbreak, or failure, they find themselves utterly alone. Those dozens of friends are nowhere to be found. The phone that once buzzed with endless messages falls silent. The invitations dry up. The smiles fade, and what remains is the hollow echo of relationships built on convenience, not commitment. Shallow friendships feel good in the warmth of easy seasons. They give the illusion of belonging, of being seen, of being valued. But seasons change, and when winter comes, when life demands something real, something enduring, shallow roots cannot weather the storm. True companionship is different. True connection is rare. It doesn't come from desperation, from trying to fill the empty spaces inside with noise and attention. It comes from fullness, from wholeness, from a place so rooted in self-respect, so anchored in self-worth, that you no longer cling to people out of fear of being alone. When you are full within yourself, when you have built a life, a mindset, and a heart that doesn't collapse when left standing alone, you start to attract differently. You stop drawing in those who are only looking to take. You stop entertaining those who only come to drain your energy. You start radiating a different kind of strength, a quiet power that repels the shallow and invites the real. You begin to meet people who see you, truly see you, not as an accessory to their life, not as a convenience or a stepping stone, but as a warrior standing on her own ground. They see the battles you've fought, the storms you've survived, the scars you wear without apology. And they don't flinch, they don't run. They don't diminish you to make themselves more comfortable. They recognize your strength because they have walked their own fires too. They know what it costs to stand unbroken. They know how rare realness is in a world obsessed with appearances. Choosing depth over company is not about rejecting people. It's about rejecting anything that threatens to make you small again. It's about refusing to settle for half-hearted friendships, performative connections, and empty conversations that leave your soul starving. It's about realizing that your time, your energy, your spirit are sacred, and not everyone deserves access to them. It's about honoring yourself enough to wait for the kind of friendships, the kind of relationships that don't require you to water yourself down just to be loved. And yes, the road to depth is lonelier at first. You will have seasons where you walk mostly alone. You will have nights when you wonder if real connection is even possible in a world that praises the shallow. But stay the course. Trust the process. Because what you're building, the depth you're carving into your life, will one day become the very thing that draws in souls who match your spirit. Souls who don't want to use you. Souls who don't want to fix you. Souls who simply want to walk beside you as equals, as warriors, as reflections of the same fire. The truth is, it's better to walk alone than to dance with people who don't even see the real you. Better to build a life that feels rich and whole in solitude than to waste your energy propping up relationships that would collapse the moment life gets hard. Choosing depth over company isn't about isolation. It's about elevation. It's about rising into a version of yourself so true, so powerful, so full that the right people can't help but find you. And when they do, you won't need to cling. You won't need to chase. You won't need to prove your worth. They'll see it, because it was never hidden. It was simply waiting for someone strong enough to recognize it, facing the temptation to settle, There will be days when loneliness feels like a heavy cloak you can't shrug off. Days when it clings to your skin, seeps into your bones, and makes every hour feel longer, colder, heavier. There will be nights when the silence around you feels too loud to bear, when the emptiness in the room echoes every doubt you've ever tried to bury. In those moments, it becomes tempting to reach for anything, anyone, just to feel less alone. You will want to lower your standards, to make compromises you swore you'd never make, to invite people into your life who don't deserve to sit at your table. You will tell yourself that something is better than nothing, that a warm body, even if it brings a cold spirit, is better than the ache of solitude. But resist. Fight that impulse with everything you have. Because loneliness is temporary, settling is forever. Accepting less than you deserve just to quiet the discomfort of the moment will cost you more than you realize. It will chip away at your spirit piece by piece. It will erode your self-respect in silent ways, in small concessions that seem harmless at first, but over time leave you wondering how you became a stranger to yourself. Settling for shallow connections might soothe the surface-level sting of loneliness, but it deepens a much greater wound, the wound of betraying your own soul. Every time you accept less than your heart knows it deserves, you teach yourself that your needs, your values, your dreams are negotiable. And once you start negotiating your worth, it becomes harder and harder to reclaim it. Loneliness, no matter how painful, is a season. It comes and goes like weather. But building a life with people who don't truly see you, who don't truly value you, who drain your energy and dull your light, that's a trap with consequences that linger. It's far easier to endure a lonely night than to untangle yourself from a life stitched together with compromises you never wanted to make. The pain of temporary loneliness is a test, a proving ground. It asks you, will you hold the line? Will you stay true to what you know you deserve, even when it hurts? Will you trust that something better is coming, even when everything inside you